Okay, guys, welcome back. Today we are going to continue Rome and look at the Punic Wars. And the Punic Wars were between Rome and Carthage, and it lasted for almost 80 years. As we go through, you want to keep in mind what started the war, what happened in all three different battles, and what the outcome of the war was. Okay? So, just to review, in the early years, Romans were very, very good at fighting. They became very skilled soldiers, and every Roman male was in the army at one point. Rome's military power began to grow, and people started to fear them. And what you're going to find out is they wanted to expand. They wanted to get more territory. They wanted to grow their empire. So Roman power is starting to grow slowly and steadily. And eventually the Romans will conquer all of the Italian peninsula. So if we look at this map, now this is a modern day map, okay? But it's effective because we can still find the boot, right? The Italian peninsula. Okay? We know that Rome is right here on kind of the shin or the front of the boot. And when I hear Italy and I hear Africa, in my mind, for some reason, they're very far apart from each other. But if you look at this map, this right here is northern Africa. So from about Rome to northern Africa, it's only about 300 miles. And they're going to fight with Carthage, and it's going to be right here. Now, when the Romans conquered new lands, they were pretty good to the people, okay? They became Roman citizens for the most part, okay? Some were taken into slavery. Some, if they were captured in battle or things like that, but you became a Roman citizen or a Roman subject. Their big enemy is Carthage. Now, Carthage is a large, powerful city in northern Africa. It's in modern-day Tunisia. Carthage was the most powerful trading power in the Mediterranean. If you looked at their location on this map, right, we understand why they are good at the Mediterranean Sea, okay? Why they are able to trade, okay? And if you look at this picture, this is a depiction of how Carthage may have looked back in its prime, and you can see this nice harbor. You can see that there is a big emphasis or a big point about ships and trading. So like I said, Carthage is a very powerful trading city. And you want to be in charge of trade because you can make a lot of money by being in charge of trade. You can still see the ancient port or the harbor for ships. Okay, you see this big round harbor? That's where you park your boat and you can offload your goods. Rome and Carthage fought over trade routes and control of the Mediterranean Sea. This is why they fight. Okay, so if we're looking at this map, we have the Italian peninsula. Okay, the Rome basically only has this area right here. Okay, and they want to fight. Now, Carthage were the master sailors of the Mediterranean. The Romans were not. So the Punic War was a sea battle and Rome won. And the reason why Rome won was even though that the people from Carthage were much better sailors than the Romans, they came up with an idea of how to bring fighting on land to the sea. So in this picture here, you see this is Carthage ship, and this is a Roman ship. And the Roman ship pulls up to the Carthage ship and puts this bridge down. This is called a corvus. Okay, they put this bridge down, and they actually send their men over to fight the people from Carthage in hand-to-hand combat. Okay, so they were able to bring the land to the sea. This is how the Roman Empire looks after the First Punic War. So everything in red there is the Roman Empire. Punic War number 2. Carthage attacks Rome by land. And we're going to talk about this when we're all together because this is a pretty neat thing that he does. Okay, the guy that you need to know is Hannibal. Hannibal was the leader of a huge and strong army. He was the leader of Carthage's army. Okay, and he even used war elephants. And we're going to watch a video on this when we come back after lunch. So what he does is he comes through Spain, and he walks along the coastline of the Mediterranean from Spain across the mountain range to the north of Rome. Which mountains are those? The Alps. And he does a surprise attack through the Italian peninsula. They weren't expecting this, and we'll talk about this when we're all together. Okay, so if Carthage is here, he takes 50,000 troops. He trains them in Spain. He hugs the coastline, marches. The Romans put a defense right here. They go around them. They cross the Alps, and they try to get in this way. This was a surprise. This was something that the Romans thought was impossible. Okay, because they're on this nice peninsula. They're expecting a water attack. Okay? Here's Hannibal and his war elephants. How crazy would that have been? Imagine if you've never seen an elephant before, and the first time you see it, it's in this scenario. Okay, but first he has to get his army and his elephants from Africa basically to Spain. They had to go on the Mediterranean Sea. They had to build boats and move these elephants. Then he had to cross the Alps mountains with these elephants. It's crazy. Look at that. Do you think elephants from Africa are used to snow and used to climbing up a mountain? Look at this. How are you going to control this elephant so he doesn't walk right off the mountain? It was crazy. They lost a lot of men and a lot of elephants, but they were able to get over the Alps, and they continued to fight. Here's Hannibal leading his army. Again, is Hannibal Roman or is he from Carthage? And for 13 years, Hannibal would hang out on the Italian peninsula trying to fight the Roman army. He really wanted to get into Rome. And after those years, they finally lose. And what happens is there's another Roman consul, and he's going to go down to Carthage, and he's going to try to attack Carthage. So Hannibal has to go home. Hannibal commits suicide. He kills himself after he loses to the Romans because he would rather be dead than be under the rule of the Romans. Punic War number 3, Rome wins. Basically, the Romans surround the city of Carthage, and they don't let anybody in or out, and most of the people starve, and then they burn it down to the ground. Okay, so let's look at how their empire has increased. Okay, so now we have most of the Mediterranean Sea. Now, instead of writing your sentences at the end of your notes, I want you to answer these questions just to make sure we have them locked into our brains. So I want you to write down who fought in the Punic Wars, how many times did they fight, who won the Punic Wars, and what was the name of the leader of the Carthaginian army. Okay? And then we'll talk about some of the effects of the wars when we are done and we all come back together. Okay, this was a very brief summary of the Punic Wars, but it was a very, very important time in Roman history because of the amount of land that they are going to get. And because there's a lot of moving pieces, and there's a lot of geography, and there's a lot of fun stories, I want to tell you about them when the whole class is listening together. Okay, so make sure your notes are filled out. Make sure you've answered these questions. And we will come together and talk about this after lunch.